Hello and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. And Keaton Shaw, thank you very much for joining us this morning on a bright, beautiful, sunny day here in TNT, the 15th of May 2023. I'm joined by my co-host and colleague who is alongside me, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, sir.
I feel as though you enjoyed that little rhyme just a bit too much, Keaton. Just a bit.
What rhyme?
Never mind. Folks, it is a beautiful morning, despite the fact that quite a lot happened this weekend. Some actually was good, some was good, some not so good, some very bad, however. Keaton?
If you heard a breath of fresh air, please excuse my colleague. We're going to take a quick break here. When we return, he'll be back with us.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program. Now I am joined by my co-host and colleague, Sean. Hello.
Hello. It's good to be heard, apparently.
How was your weekend?
It was all right, but the irony, of course, was, sometimes you're like, oh, I had a decent weekend, a happy weekend, a great weekend. I actually was able to spend part of Saturday with some friends. But of course, now at some point, then you have to get back into, what has happened. And as I was not heard saying earlier, there were some good things that happened over the weekend. There were some not so good things. And this is all just in relation to crime. For the most part, there was so much with regards to crime that I haven't really given that much attention to other topics. There was a debate with regards to juryless trials on Friday. That ended up in some interesting situations, but we'll get into that later. I didn't necessarily pay attention to the fresh set of murders because it's hard to read on those things. But of course, we know that the murder rate has continued to go up. But there were other things, of course, that happened, some of which is quite ironic. And of course, to get into that, let's get into the daily review. So, of course, the first thing, Keita, that I'm speaking about is, at the Police Services Centennial Sports and Family Day, the Commissioner of Police was basically asked the question to rate her performance. I'm paraphrasing, of course, and her response was excellent. Professor Diosaran, he thinks maybe it was a tongue-in-cheek answer, and given the circumstances of where she was at the time, I could kind of see where he's going there with it. But to some extent, given the fact that the murder rate is what it is and crime is what it is, I'm not too sure if I am willing to accept a benign answer of, it wasn't a serious answer. And then, of course, if it is serious, either way, it comes back to what we said when McDonald Jacobs was put on the spot and he answered the question. Don't answer this question. There is nothing good from you answering this question. And I don't think anybody really wants to hear, I'm doing an excellent job. How you assess it, that varies, as some of the criminologists did. I just don't think it's an answer that is acceptable to the general public.
Of course not. Just bear in mind, whatever answer earlier what Christopher would have given would not have been satisfactory to the public. For example, if she said, I think I can do better, I'm not doing well, the public would have said, so why are you in this position? You know, and because she said she's rating herself as excellent as the first 100 days in office, I think that is the worst possible response that you can give.
Worst?
Yes, the worst possible response that you can give. Because, as I said, any response would have been bad in the eyes of the public. That in particular, saying excellent, is the worst possible response. Because if I was to analyze this and say, okay, Earl Edward Christopher is actually admitting this is the peak of her capabilities as the Commissioner of Police, then we're all doomed. I mean, in a way, it's a good thing for the public to understand and realize there's not going to be a reduction in crime because really, this is all Earl Edward Christopher can do if she's giving herself an excellent rating. Now, if I were to take a page out of my colleague's book and say, listen, she was put on this spot and therefore that was the only possible answer that she could have given because, I mean, previously you suggested because they're put on a spot like that, sometimes it's the only answer that comes to their mind. So, if I were to be fair, possibly that may be the case, but still, it's difficult to digest this. If this is where we are, I hate to see. If this is an excellent performance, I'd love to see what a subpar, terrible performance could be like from the Commissioner of Police. Now, on what benchmark are you going to rate her? Is it going to be the communication from the Trans-Tobago Police Service? Is it going to be murders and just simply murders alone? You see, the problem is, I can't necessarily blame her. Because those in authority, as we currently sit and are speaking here this morning, Sean, they do not live in reality. They are not in touch with reality. They make judgment based off of their egos. They speak based off of their egos. Their egos are essentially what rules their mindsets and what rules their communication with the public. And if that is the case, Earl Edward Christopher has proven no different. Now, is it fair to rate her 100 days in this particular position, given how crime has evolved over the couple of years? Is it fair? Possibly not. Should we wait more time? Okay, but just bear in mind one thing. She has set a benchmark for herself of June to reduce murders.
Yes, she did.
So therefore, it would not be unfair of us if next month, at the end of next month, come the 30th of June 2023, we sit down and we analyze her performance. If it is poor, if it is excellent, it's not necessarily going to be unfair.
Now, and to be fair, I don't think we're quite on the record-setting murder rate that we were afraid of, but we're more or less, I think generally speaking, in line to where things were last year. So it's not as though we're going to see a significant enough reduction, and by significant I mean like, more than say 10 or 20 or so, a small figure like that. She set herself up with regards to that statement, and now she answered the question. And yes, the only answer I think that would have worked is to basically sidestep the question because there is no good answer. But more importantly, like even if you take the answers seriously, as you mentioned too, you will ask, well, what criteria are you giving yourself this grade? I have seen, I can't remember which criminologist it was, but he did more or less say, well, look, we have to remember. And he reminded us in what he was brought us saying. This situation is bigger than the TTPS. This is bigger than just what Earl Edward Christopher could have done within a few months. So it could just be that her performance, technically speaking, is excellent. But again, with regards to the public and the messaging that you're sending, right, we're not really seeing excellent. What we're seeing, ironically, is average because you are more or less doing a very similar job to your predecessor. So you're not better, you're not worse, you're more or less average because the murder rate more or less is going to reach at the same point.
The day that these individuals in authority, and I know that we're speaking specifically of the Commissioner of Police, but as I mentioned previously, it seems as though those in authority, both on the sides of the opposition and the current administration, by the way, and obviously within government-appointed agencies as well, because let's not underestimate the fact that these are political appointments. Understand that they rate themselves and they think and they operate based off of their egos. They're completely out of touch with reality. The day that these individuals can be truthful or experience what reality is if they had no security. Could you imagine a minister without a security detail or without having the facilities of security around their premises. And if you think that, okay, listen, they don't actually have security with them 24/7, or believe you me, maybe you see a minister driving a vehicle or even a senator driving a vehicle and so on and so forth. If these ministers did not have a security detail, and if earlier Christopher didn't even have a security detail as well, I believe they'd be a bit more in touch with reality.
I think what you said just sparked a thought. I think perhaps we must always remember they could all be, pardon the analogy, little emperors, right? And nobody's willing to call them out on the fact that they're wearing no clothes. So just about everybody around them is like, yes, yes, your wardrobe is beautiful. Meanwhile, the person is stark naked. And at least in this case, however, it's not a situation where, you're testing, the opinions of the people around you, right? In this case, it is you're eating up and you're not really looking for a contrarian view to backstop yourself. That is one of the things about leadership, especially if you can't, they choose to create an environment where it's difficult to question them. So, of course, now all the feedback they get from people within the vicinity of those jobs, it's not necessarily going to be negative.
Kudos to Lewood Christopher for even wanting to answer the question. Again, she was put on the spot.
Kudos.
I would say kudos because, listen, you actually answered the question. People would shy away from it. But as I said, no answer would have been good enough for the public. Let's be realistic. However, the thing is, if I had the opportunity, my follow-up question to her would simply be, on what grounds would you rate your performance as excellent? What justification? How would you say, if you are going to say, listen, I rate my performance based off of the resources that are available to me and the management of such resources, I'd say then clearly you don't understand really where those resources are. I understand police officers are human too. But when it is that you call a police station and they don't have a patrol right now, or they don't have a vehicle, and yet you see 2 police vehicles parked up outside a snow cone vendor's place, which I've seen multiple times, by the way, right? What's going on there? So, again, I would just simply ask, on what grounds would you rate yourself as being excellent? Because I can't look at, put it this way, neither you and I could look at ourselves and say, hey, listen, Sean, I do a damn good job here on Talking Point. I doing excellent. It wouldn't make sense. Because if I tell you that now, guess what? Tomorrow morning, I'm not even going to bother to try and do better than I did today. So if this is the peak of Erla Airwood Christopher's momentum as Commissioner of Police and her ability to actually manage things, if this is the peak, we're doomed.
One last thing before we move on. Senior positions care about results. It doesn't matter how well you did on a curve relative to what's reasonable. If you're a CEO, if you're the head cheese of something that is not just a small business or whatever, results matter. Whether we think it's fair or not, results matter. It does not matter how great you manage to deal with the challenges on your tenure. If the results are bad, generally speaking, whether it's the public, whether it's stakeholders, whether it's shareholders of a private corporation, they will want to replace you. Because you can't, and in this case, again, the murder rate waits for no one. The murder rate does not care about your performance graded on a curve. And I think one of the main issues with her that I have as Commissioner of Police is she can have all the technical skills she wants. The one technical skill she lacks is public relations and communication. And in that position, we might want it not to be political, but it's a leadership position. That's a leadership function. And I think it's proven that she doesn't have what it takes with that regard, but she has to be careful now not to let it sink her, and we'll see how that goes. The next story, it actually comes out of comments she said, and the former commissioner, her predecessor's predecessor, criticized some of her comments with regards to what it meant for private gun ownerships. I don't necessarily want to start there. One of the main things that struck me was when she was answering the questions, I believe it was, well, she was answering a question and she gave statistics with regards to guns and bullets being imported. And over the last several years, the figures that she's speaking about, it's thousands of guns per year, and millions of rounds of ammunition every year since 2017, the highest being 2020 with 57 million rounds of ammunition, and apparently it is for non-law enforcement purposes. Now, I have a hard time understanding, I'm trying to figure it out, just what could we have in TNT that would necessitate 57 million. Again, this was 2020, it came back down to 18 million the following year, and I think 8 million the year after that. But at least in 1 year, it was 57 million rounds of private ammunition for non-law enforcement. I don't know if that means military, and it's being somewhat facetious with regards to the classification, but that's a lot of rounds. The former Commissioner Griffith, he was saying, well, why are you questioning the amount of ammunition private citizens have? Yeah, if it's 10 or 30, I don't care. But 57 million, what do we even have the need for that in TNT?
I actually think there is a greater need for scrutiny of the amount of ammunition private citizens has, and there needs to be greater accountability. Now, as far as I'm aware, every single bullet is supposed to be accounted for on a gun range.
Yeah.
Every single bullet is supposed to be accounted for at any gun dealers or ammunition or law enforcement agency that particular place always needs to account for it. It needs to be signed for, at least as far as I'm aware. But there needs to be clarification on what non-law enforcement is, simply because in the most respectable manner, even if the Trans-Tobago Police Service at times cannot account for ammunition, for example, we've heard of instances of where there are bullets at scenes which have TTPS marking on it, but the police service don't know anything about it.
Or Defence Force markings.
Or Defence Force markings, but these agencies know nothing of it, and when they go back to their stock, we could account for it. These particular statistics of 57 million, is it collated data from all legal importers? Because bear in mind, there may be illegal importers who are part of a legal system, if you understand what I'm suggesting. So this 57 million, there needs to be further clarification given and further information given on this particular, because the figure is extremely high, that's putting it very lightly, but my first thought is I need a lot more information than that.
Because when with regards to our comments about 100 legal guns used in crime, former Commissioner Griffith pointed out the fact that, look, are you counting when police officers might have misfired a weapon, or civilians might have misfired a weapon, or self-defense citizens, or a whole host of technicalities that could explain, and it's not necessarily like, well, no, robbers taking legal guns to use in crime. In this case, non-law enforcement, we take it for granted because we want to lump our Coast Guard and Defence Force in with the police, use the Defence Force, use the National Security Services to help with crime. But technically speaking, an army arm or a Coast Guard arm are not law enforcement. There's a reason for that, right? They technically are trained in law enforcement. They're supposed to operate under different rules of engagement, conventions, laws, a whole host of things, right? That's why they can't necessarily just, use force or arrest people in quite the same manner that the police could do so. So that's one potential explanation. But I think one of the things, though, is that I do have to ask, is it that we don't have a handle on the situation, and the situation is kind of, getting out of control, in the sense that if these bullets are being illegally eventually ending up, whether it's smuggled to somewhere else or used illegally locally, and the guns, we're talking 5,000 guns 1 year, 2,000 guns the next year, 64,000 guns in 2020 with the large chunk of ammunition, and then 43,000 and 2,000.
Is that
when these things are technically brought in legally, right? And if they end up in an illegal end point, is it that our accounting is our accounting? Well, no. It just depends. If all of these things, a lot of them end up in the hands of criminals, the fact that you could legally bring it in but don't have to account for where it's going makes me wonder what's going on. Is it that easy to smuggle guns in that you could literally just bring it in through the front door and then make it disappear in a country as small as this? 57 million bullets, 64 in 1 year, 1,000 guns. Where did 64,000 guns go?
Is that a rhetorical question?
I guess. No, it's just that because I don't know that these were used illegally, right? But then now I have a hard time trying to figure out what legal use do we have for 64,000 guns in a year?
I find it rather interesting that the very perfectly round figure of 100 guns was given as statistics.
Yeah, yes.
You know? It just seems, I often say that, I find people call out these perfectly round, wonderful figures that sound very odd when you think about it. How are they collecting this information, right? Do they have all the evidence to prove these things? Because even if you want to scrutinize and question about private citizens and the guns and ammunition that they hold, of course, I think there needs to be an account of that as well. But are we also keeping an account of the guns and ammunition that the Trans-Tobago Police Service have within their realm? The same thing with the Defense Force, the same thing with the Coast Guard. I ask that because if you're telling me that 57 million rounds of ammunition was brought in, I'm assuming that's collated data collected from each legal importer. But then how do you have statistics about illegal guns? How do you have statistics about, illegal guns that are on the streets of Trinidad? If you have an understanding of these are how many guns, you should also have an understanding of probably where they're coming from and where they're going to. The thing is that at the end of the day, I think giving statistics is not always a very easy thing. I want information, I want statistics. But then when the statistics come, I also need clarification in the sense that, what are you doing about it? What is actually being done about it? Yeah, we're spreading this information all well and good. I want information. What are we actually doing about it? How are we actually resolving the issues of illegal guns on the streets or the ports of entry? Again, may I say, there is no scanners at the port. And it has been suggested by multiple individuals who have spoken to me that when you go to the port to clear a container, many a times these officers of the port, they come and they open the container. They don't even bother to search the container. They don't even bother to go inside. They just literally clear it. So this is why I keep saying you have illegal items possibly coming in, not possibly, illegal items coming through legal ports of entry. So given these statistics is one thing. You're doing an excellent job in actually cleaning up the mess that's on Trinidad streets.
So, you don't know what one of those cases, 100 sounds like they just were looking for examples and they stopped at 100, right? But then again, that's cherry picking. But you know what, one of those cases, I hope they did count as one of those cases. Well, a legal bullet from a police officer's gun did hit PC Gilks in the back of the neck and it ended in his death, which I do think is a crime. So I hope that was counted as part of the 100. Folks, we have to take a break. When we come back, then we're going to go into, the whole situation with regards to juryless trials. And there's also part of the bill that speaks to reducing the size of juries for trials as well. Stay tuned for Talking Points on WESN, your content capital. We'll be right back.
This May, the spectacular event you've been waiting for is coming. May 27th, celebrate amazing North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Festival grounds, Blashy Shares. Born here, played here. Tickets available at Crosby's, Extra Foods Endeavour, Shogunus Main Road, Sangre Grande, Arima, Grand Bazaar, Mart's Liquor Mart, Diego Martin, Kenny's Sports Outlets, Athletes by the Park, and WESN.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife.
Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
By the time an inquiry had been conducted, more than half the jurors said that that conversation had impacted upon them, and the entire trial was squashed, and an entire month of work basically went down the drain, and we had to start over. So I understand jurors. I have sat through many, the first day of the month when they ask all these persons who are called to serve as jurors. They come bearing letters from employers. They have all sorts of excuses. They do not want to serve at various points in time. There's also the challenge that a number of exemptions already exist in the Jury Act. The pool of persons who are eligible to serve as jurors is already narrowed down by these exemptions. And then you have other persons coming to seek exemptions. So jury trials do, in fact, pose some challenges. But that does not take away from the fact that the right to trial, well, there's no constitutionally protected right. But a person's right to be tried and to be judged by a jury of his peers is very important. Because you see, what a jury brings to a trial is something that I would say I don't believe a judge alone can bring. And that is the practical, everyday experience of the average man and woman in this country. How the average man or woman would react to a certain situation. How the average man or woman would be expected to respond to questions posed to them by the police in cases where you're dealing with confessions. Those are issues which someone who lives a very cloistered and a life that is sort of, limits their interaction with, I think the UK expression is the man on the Clapham omnibus. I've West Indianized it to the man on the priority bus route. But if you don't interact with the man on the priority bus route every day, the man standing up down at City Gate, the man walking around High Street in San Fernando, can you really judge the average person and their reaction? That we have to balance that requirement for expeditious trials, for more cost-effective trials, for to rid the system of all of the challenges that we may have when juries perhaps have prejudice, and sometimes it is more difficult for the average citizen to disabuse their minds of certain prejudices, like where a person is from, etc., as opposed to a judicial officer. And you are accused and you are brought before the court. You want someone who is just like you, an average person who understands your story, your background, your history, your thought process, to be the ones who will determine whether or not you should be convicted of an offense. How do we balance those things? And that's what we're here to discuss today. One of the things I want to discuss really is the reduction in numbers for the juries, and then we're also dealing with situations where we have no juries at all. And I think that's the more concerning part of this bill. By reducing the numbers for non-capital offenses from 9 to 6 and for capital offenses from 12 to 9, you're limiting the amount of experience that is brought to bear on that process. I assume that the reason for doing so is because it makes it easier to impanel the jury when you have fewer people to find. It would have less cost attached because, of course, jurors are given stipends and so on. And when you have a wider pool, you eliminate the risk, or you mitigate against the risk of all persons sitting on a jury perhaps thinking one particular way. You increase your chances of having diversity and diverse opinions coming together to debate the guilt or innocence of a person. So the reduction in these numbers, I believe, requires some serious consideration, and I don't think it is something to be treated so lightly, simply to say that it will make trials easier for us to have.
So that was Senator Jayanti Lakshmidiyal there speaking after Reginald Amor, Attorney General, I believe, reread the miscellaneous provisions trial by Judge Alone Bill 2023 in the Senate on Friday. She was the first person to respond to his presentation. She brought up more concerns. One was with regards to how the parliamentary debate process happened, because certain information was not made available beforehand, but that's a separate question. She also had other perspectives with regards to the debate with regards to juryless trials. But your initial thoughts, because I know there's actually some other drama that went on towards the end of this debate, but before that, with regards to this topic, where do you stand, Keita?
I think it's something that we should explore. I wouldn't immediately shut it out. I don't think jury-free trials are the only way that is going to try and resolve the criminal justice system, because it's not the only factor. But at the same time, it's certainly something that needs more explanation and more examination, and it's something that we should hear from, not only from attorneys at law, but also you'd like to hear from criminologists. I believe a couple of them have already spoken, and even stakeholders, even members of the public. And the reason being is because, just as how she said that how you want to be judged by a jury of your peers because it's somebody who can relate to you. Okay, the individual who is defending you, your lawyer, do hoity-toity lawyers actually, are they in line with what people actually face? Because they're going to courts and they're going to defend them, right? But they may not necessarily understand or recognize it, yet they're still going to court on their behalf because that's their qualification, that's their job. I think the situation for me is the issue with respect to judges. The bigger issue is if judges take bribes, how are you going to actually have a fair trial? That is one of the things that needs close examination. If I were to, utilize the comments made by the Minister of National Security that exactly. Criminals have friends in every single place. Trial is a small place, so even if you have a judge who has friends who are criminals, the same thing could be said for members of the jury. You never aren't entirely sure what the relationship is. They may not be related, but they may know of the individual, and they may simply say, I don't know of the individual. So however you examine it, there's always going to be risks. Mm-hmm. The thing you have to look at the most is whether or not it's going to have greater benefits. And to be honest with you, I'm not entirely out of saying no. We should not have judge-alone trials. At this point in time, I'm more neutral on the case, but I'm not shutting it out completely.
So a couple other things that the Senator brought up, one of which was the fact that she felt she did a lot of special victims, sex offenses, crimes, and she felt that a lot of the victims would come back and they feel a lot more comfortable telling their story to a jury rather than to a single judge who his perspective or her perspective will be very, very unique and aloof to their situation, as opposed to telling their story as victims to ordinary people. And there's something about the fact that, yes, it's not just about the jury. She said this. It's not just about the jury judging the accused, innocent or guilty. It's also judging witnesses, the veracity of all of the evidence, of all of the testimonies and the witness statements. So that's what that will impact as well if you just leave it to judge. It's interesting that literally within a couple of weeks, the Minister of National Security says, you have judges who have friends in criminal spheres, and then now you're looking to push juryless trials that will be handled by judges alone.
Yes.
One of the biggest things and that the senator said was there was a part where she vehemently opposes, and it's a part that says that the court so directs in the interest of justice. And her interpretation, so I'm not entirely sure if it's correct, is that somebody could come and request to have a jury. You don't want a juryless trial, but because the court so directs in the interest of justice, the judge might actually say, well, no, in the interest of justice, I think I will just hear it without a jury. But she's concerned about that clause where a judge could basically say, no, we are going to go juryless, based on how the legislation, I believe, is currently written.
Lawyers may not actually agree to this simply because judges go strictly with the law. Right? Lawyers interpret the law and make a case for their client. A judge will actually make a judgment based off of law. And that probably will not work in favor of their clients. Also, the longer a trial goes on, or the more consultation is needed with a lawyer, currently they make more money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So think about it from that perspective as well. So you're not going to hear a lawyer actually agreeing to this at all. You're not going to hear about that. But I certainly also think...
the senator is a lawyer.
Well, yeah, the senator is a lawyer. And I'm not saying that she came out with blazing guns. She raised, good points. But I think they're not, for me personally, I don't think it's that much of a great argument on the basis of it. If judges were to rule on law, and they could basically judge evidence as well. They could judge witness statements as well. I don't see why not. Another thing, though, is this also going to try and help resolve the fact that even if you have a judge or a jury trial, sometimes documents don't make it to the court, wrong documents make it to the court, police officers don't show up to the court.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying. This is not going to solve the issue. There are multiple factors, but I mean, it's possibly one way to try and put a Band-Aid on it.
Well, put a Band-Aid. I mean, Independent Senator Evan Welch, apparently he agrees with Senator Lakshmi Dayal. He is like, look, the standard is 12. Why are we going below 12? Again, that's for capital offenses. But what was interesting as well, just to wrap this up, on Friday, the debate was more or less suddenly halted, and it seems as though come tomorrow, the government will be going on with the finance supplementation and variation of appropriation bill, and they have not wound up this judge alone debate, and they also, the head of government business, Gopi Skoon said that they did not give a date with regards to when that will happen. Didn't necessarily give an explanation as to why the debate was suddenly halted. Some has proffered, it might have been Senator Lakshmi Dayal herself, that perhaps the debate caused the government to want to withdraw and do revisions based on what the opposition debate has said with regards to what the independents has said, the Law Association has said, and the Criminal Bar Association has said. They have all apparently come out with serious concerns about the bill, I believe, as written. That is not to say that they're against juryless trials, probably, so to speak, or reducing the number of jurors, but I think a lot of it comes down to that boogeyman word implementation all over again.
I'll tell you what, let's pause on that particular topic for now. Let's take a break here on Talking Points. When we return, we'll welcome our guest commentator for Monday. I think the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service would like to have a word with us. We'll find out what that is when we return. Stay tuned.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Safe and sound, that's how we'll get you to the biggest North Coast Jazz ever. No hassle and no worries. Park your ride at the Queen's Park Savannah, hop on board a safe and secure shuttle with your $100 return fee, and that's it. Service begins at 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. and returns from festival grounds from 7 p.m. Park and ride, a $100 return fee, first come, first go shuttle service to festival grounds Blashy shares. No hassle and no worries. North Coast Jazz, May 27th. Born here, played here, Tickets available at Crosby's, Extra Foods Endeavour, Shogunus Main Road, Sangre Grande, Arima, Grand Bazaar, Mart's Liquor Mart, Diego Martin, Kenny's Sports Outlets, Athletes by the Park, and WESN.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
The artists you'll meet. The sounds will astonish you. Superb voices, new artists, simply refreshing. Celebrate amazing. May 27th, North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Festival grounds Blanchishes. Born here, played here. Tickets available at Crosby's, Extra Foods Endeavour, Shogunus Main Road, Sangre Grande, Arima, Grand Bazaar, Mart's Liquor Mart, Diego Martin, Kenny's Sports Outlets, Athletes by the Park, and WESN.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Thank you for staying with us this morning. We're now joined by Acting ASP Ashraf Ali. Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning, sir. How was your day so far?
Thus far, not surprising. I think that's the most appropriate way of putting it. I'm going good. How was your day thus far?
It's interesting. It's interesting. We had a long weekend. We didn't have much incidents over the weekend, so that was a positive.
Oh, we didn't?
Yeah.
How was sports day?
Sports was fine. Sports was fine.
And what are your thoughts on the Commissioner of Police rating herself as excellent?
Well, I guess the Commissioner would have considered everything, what she may have been implementing and what the results were. And in her opinion, she believed that she did an excellent job.
What is your opinion?
My opinion is she has been doing a good job. But my opinion might just be one of many.
Yes.
Right? Like everything else, the assessment, she made a statement, and the assessment will be done by the appropriate agencies when that time reaches to determine whether or not it is effective enough. What you're seeing right now is, if you look at it from face value, the number of woundings, the number of homicides, the shootings, the robberies, I mean, it's not correlating with what the public might say, excellent job, right? Because of the fact that there is a lot of different and variant type of crimes that are taking place that we are all still grappling with as police officers, we still live in Trinidad and Tobago, so we still have families here that we still do have to consider that as part of our policing, right? Notwithstanding that, over the weekend, in the last couple of weeks, we did some good job in Eastern Division, where they recovered a AR-15.
Yes.
Yes.
But what was very interesting is that the AR-15 was found in the room of a 17-year-old. Now, persons need to understand, and families and parents need to understand that these are serious situations. Having an AR-15 together with the other things like marijuana and everything like that, there are some consequences. The legal consequence, you can be arrested, or you will be arrested for possession of the weapon. You have to go to court, you have to pay for lawyers, and those are additional costs attached to defending yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The entire family could have been arrested at the same time.
Really?
Right, because it all depends when you go to execute a warrant in a house where the firearm is located.
Mm-hmm.
If someone doesn't accept responsibility, automatically everybody will be arrested and detained because there is no ownership of the weapon. It was found where everybody had access.
Let me ask you, in your opinion, based off of your experience, would you say that parents are actually protecting their children whom they know are committing wrong deeds, who are committing crimes? For example, this was found in the room of a 17-year-old. We do not know whether or not it truly belongs to him, whether it belongs to another member of the family, and I'm sure the investigation will actually conclude that. But do you think that parents are actually protecting their children whom are committing wrong acts?
Well, many parents like to believe that their children is always, as I say, good boy, good girl, right? Never involved in anything wrong. Fair enough. I mean, as a parent, I understand how they would view things, but then you have to look at the consequences. I just discussed some of the consequences from a legal perspective, from a law enforcement and legal perspective. What about the other consequences? Do you think these parents understand that that AR-15 belongs to someone who, it's an illegal item, so it's somebody, some gang member, some gang or somebody you're keeping it for? Do you think that it's okay now to say, well, okay, we lost our firearm, we don't have to pay for it? Somebody has to pay the price. It may not be the 17-year-old young man.
Oh, it very well could be.
Could be.
Even if
but
he's in
then
prison.
somebody may or may not have to get the money to deal with that. So, you have the lawyer fees now, you have the bail money that you have to look to go and get. You have to put up your house and all of that to get we have to have proper land deed and all that to get bail. That is one side of the legal aspect of it. What about when now we have to pay for the firearm? Where are you going to get that money to pay for the firearm? Is it now that you're going to the cycle now that you have to go back into illegal activities to pay for a legal gun, an illegal gun that you was keeping for illegal purposes? These are some of the circumstances that parents need to really, really take cognizance of. That, okay, you know you were a child. You know you were a child lineman with certain individuals. You know the type of individuals a child lineman with, right? He or she may not be involved directly, but the mere fact that a weapon was kept in the house of an individual.
Do you think a lack of good parenting is one of the major causes or factors that contribute to crime?
And that has been some of the conversation for the last couple of years. So how we reach this situation where we're talking about parenting from varying aspects of the whole situation, even in schools, right? I mean, we were not discussing the aspect of number of narcotics was found in a location and the value of those narcotics. The question is that when you have narcotics or illegal items, right, kept in your location, somebody has to pay for those items being taken away by law enforcement.
The irony, of course, is that's a trope with regards to police shows where you confiscate the items because it was being held, and there are a lot of consequences for people because of that. But it's not actually a message that I hear too often with regards to, not like in a fictitious sense you're watching a show, but like you hear from stakeholders, law enforcement, wherever, not just Trinidad, I'm talking all around the world with regards to the dangers of crime and the threat of crime and what to tell young people. Well, one of the things, what you just said there, that warning, I haven't really heard it that often. It's like, look, you get involved and things don't turn out right. You will have to not just pay the consequences to the law, but you will also have to bear the illegal consequences to the criminals as well. And I don't know if that might be enough to get them to understand, listen, this is a lose-lose. The risk isn't really worth it to you. And do they have programs? Because as much as I have not heard it, maybe it is out there. Do they have programs that are going to actually give young people that harsh reality?
And there are some programs, but the majority, there's not, I don't think there's enough by different agencies involved in law enforcement and community-related activities that sings this home. I've been listening to some of the ex prisoners who came out of prison and spoke, right? And they came out and when you listen to some of the media's radio talk shows, and they came out openly and spoke about the cycle that they got themselves involved in and how hard and difficult it was to get out of it. That's just one aspect of it. But once you get in or start the process, it's a difficult way to get out because you're already in debt. This family is in debt to AR-15 and other items, right? Like so many other situations.
But to what extent could the police use this case of getting to the root source of this AR-15? Because as much as it's been confiscated and the 17-year-old has been arrested, and you have suggested that the entire family could have been charged. I mean, is the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service actually going to utilize this to, because you're mentioning they now owe money for an AR-15, get to the source of where this illegal weapon came from?
They do, in fact. Once a weapon, any firearm has been confiscated, it is traced. It is traced in collaboration with the international agencies that work in partnership with us, and the firearms are traced to their origins. I would not mention the origins of those.
No need to mention the origins,
but where they came from. But it's not in Trinidad. It's out of Trinidad, and there has been persons who was indicating where they came from.
It was illegally smuggled in.
Illegally smuggled.
Well, my bigger concern is if that is the case, have we actually sourced the illegal smugglers, arrested and charged them?
No, it's international. It's cross borders. So Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will be working in collaboration with other agencies to treat with certain situations. The most recent was that the most recent one was published in the US, where persons were found guilty of trying to export, or did in fact attempting to export firearms into Trinidad and Tobago. Right? And these are some of the things that these type of investigations go. Now, persons don't believe that the consequences are there. They only speaking about the consequences from the policing perspective, right? I would say that the policing perspective or the legal perspective is the least of your issue, because you still have an opportunity to get a defense, to get a lawyer, go before a court, right, and plead your case. But after all of that, that AR-15 that you lost, because as far as the criminal element is concerned, you lost my item. You lost a weapon. You owe me a weapon. That IOU don't go like if you go to a bank and pay an IOU, you know. They're not coming to levy or send a bailiff by your house. The type of bailiff they're going to send, the type of person they're sending there is not a bailiff.
And we just had an incident last week where a 12-year-old got injured and left in a critical condition. I haven't seen any updates myself, but we've seen children be gunned down. We assume, of course, collateral damage. These are young children. It's hard to imagine that they wouldn't talk anything. But now, why would a 17-year-old think that they will treat him like a child? Why would society now, should we assume that criminality will respect, well, he's not an adult yet? For all intents and purposes, if they could gun down small children, they could do with whatever they feel to do. And I think we see, is it fair to say that we see those consequences? That's why we have so much gang killings and shootings and reprisals?
And these are some of the areas that have to be considered when the investigation is taking place, because we have one line of investigation which is solely from the prosecutorial aspect of it, but then we have the other aspect of how we can mitigate the fallout of it, right? And the mitigation, how we mitigate this is how we send messages out, how we start to communicate with the youths, how we start to communicate within the community as to what the consequences of doing these things for criminals. And it's not in Trinidad alone. You see it across the world, right? You see it in Colombia. Recently, I saw a video circulating in Haiti, where gang members were a very graphic video where they actually had number of gang members on the street that was killed on the streets, right? Executed on the streets, and those are gang-related incidents.
The incident with the home invasion where the men in the family, 3 men were killed. I mean, we don't know what the motivations were. Perhaps it could be something like this.
Over the weekend, last week, there was an article where there was someone was shot in their home, and the victim reported that when they got up, they saw a man standing over him and shot him. And he and his girlfriend wasn't injured. But just the mere fact that the question is, what was the motive for someone coming into your house, standing over you, and you are sleeping and fire him at you, just wake up and fire him at you. Something would have caused this to happen. And these are some of the...
Let me ask you a question, Acting SP. How is it so easy here in TNT for criminal elements to be armed with these weapons and these high-powered weapons? How is it so easy? How have we allowed this to happen?
And exactly. So that's the biggest question that everybody is trying to answer.
Well, could the TTPS answer it?
The TTPS did, in fact, answer some of the questions. Persons may not like the fact that they may not like the answer. We have a lot of porous borders.
And who's responsible for these porous borders?
Well, we have agencies responsible for it. And some of the agencies have their challenges at the same time. But then we as citizens take advantage of situations to allow ourselves to get involved. Now, how do you leave an island, right, to bring in contraband, illegal weapons? By boats. Many of our, we have multiple locations along our coast that persons utilize.
But coming up rivers, for example, the Carney River, that's not going to be the duty of the Coast Guard at that point. It's not going to be the duty of the Trans-Bago Police Service.
Well, now it is. But previously, without the Marine Interdiction Unit, it was not that of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. But now that we have the Marine Interdiction Unit, so which is a small unit, right? But at the same time, it will cover that area.
I mean, does it even make sense having this unit if one is such a small unit where it actually doesn't have the capability of dealing with this situation?
No.
And two, doesn't the Trans-Bago Police Service bear responsibility if there is indeed a unit, and yet still somehow or the other, it's not proving to be successful?
No, it all depends on how you want to view success. The Marine Interdiction Unit is not going to take away the rules and responsibility of Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. Right? And if the perception is that that is what it's going to be, that's a wrong perception, right? We do it because remember there's a unit as compared to our entire
service,
right? Or part of a service which falls on the Trinidad Tobago Defense Force. That is just one aspect of it. Then we have other areas where we have legal ports of entry, and we all mentioned it earlier, and they had the conversation of legal ports of entry where items are coming through legal ports of entry, right? And it's not new. We have records, we have evidence, and we have evidence that items did in fact come through. We confiscated a lot of these items, and unfortunately, the public has not been brought up to speed because investigations is still being conducted, and the nature of the investigation is very sensitive, as you mentioned earlier.
Well, folks, I mean, I have another question, but I don't want to necessarily cause us to go over time. So we have to take a break for news on the hour. When we return, we will continue the conversation as briefly as possible and then open up the phone lines. May even have a question of the day for you. But folks, news in our next talking point. We'll be right back.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 2 gunned down on Sunday. Boy 17 held with AR-15 magazine ammo in Sangre Grande. Regionally, Guyana, Saudi Arabia signed US $150 million financing MOU. And internationally, deadly storm hits Myanmar and Bangladesh coasts. Now for the details. 1 man is dead following a shooting in Point Kumana, Karanaj last night. That is 24-year-old Romario Jawahir. A baby was also wounded in this shooting incident. Meanwhile, in Karni, Avinash Kanhai was shot and killed at Rabindranath Trace Kelly Village. Investigations into these incidents are ongoing. A 17-year-old boy who was held yesterday with a high-powered rifle and a quantity of ammunition by gang intelligence detectives in Sangre Grande is currently assisting police with investigations. The boy was arrested during an anti-gang operation executed by Eastern Divisional Gang and Intelligence Unit police officers following a surveillance exercise into illegal firearms and ammunition in the Sangre Grande district. Police officers allegedly found 1 black AR-15 equipped with 1 magazine, 21 rounds of 5.56 ammunition, 50 rounds of 9mm ammunition, and 1 drum magazine containing a quantity of 9mm ammunition in the accused bedroom. In regional news now, Senior Finance Minister Dr. Ashni Singh, on behalf of the Guyana government and Chief Executive Officer of the Saudi Fund for Development, Sultan Al Marshad, signed a Memorandum of Understanding regarding the Saudi Fund's participation in the financing of development projects in Guyana. A release from the Ministry of Finance said that the projects for which the MOU was signed are infrastructural development works for the housing sector and construction of the Wismar Bridge, both projects totaling US $150 million. In international news now, a powerful cyclone has hit the coastlines of Bangladesh and Myanmar after intensifying into the equivalent of a Category 5 storm. Cyclone Mocha did not make landfall at the sprawling refugee camp in Cox's Bazar as earlier feared, but still tore apart hundreds of makeshift shelters. At least 6 people have been reported dead in Myanmar. Up to 90% of the western Rakhine state's capital city, Sittwe, has been destroyed. Well, that was your News of the Hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The artists you'll meet. The sounds will astonish you. Superb voices, new artists, simply refreshing. Celebrate amazing. May 27th, North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Festival grounds Blanchishes. Born here, played here. Tickets available at Crosby's, Extra Foods Endeavour, Chaguanas Main Road, Sangre Grande, Arima, Grand Bazaar, Mart's Liquor Mart, Diego Martin, Kenny's Sports Outlets, Athletes by the Park, and WESN.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Now, before we open up the phone lines or even give you the question of the day, I believe my co-host, there was a point that you wanted to raise.
Yeah. So we had the discussions off air. We started to, but with regards to illegal firearms, because I guess one of the things that people are concerned about is the fact that, look, one firearm is a big deal, but estimates have been given out in the tens of thousands, but they're just estimates. First of all, could you just describe to us very quickly, how these estimates are brought about and how reliable are they?
Well, okay, so though I don't want to be quoted as stating that this is the exact way that they do it, but I could just give a projection. Over the years, we would have seized a number of firearms. So let's say that we seize 20 firearms just for the discussion purposes, and we have 20 incidents involving weapons, right? So they could very well be combined together and say that number of illegal weapons that we have out there would have been 40 because we recovered 20 and still have 20 what was involved in shootings. It may not, my judgment right now this is just an understanding of how they go through it. But then there's a little more analytical work that will be done to come up with the figures. Right? So just basically that's how you start the analysis.
Because we've heard an estimate, I think it was maybe last year or year before, and you hear these estimates every now and then where it will be in the thousands, and I know that we have not had a murder rate that is known of in the thousands just yet, or even like a shooting crime rate.
So we also have woundings, shootings, that is also collated to give you the figure, because those are incidents that involve a firearm. Right? So if it's involving a firearm, it's an illegal firearm, and that's a firearm that we wouldn't even be able to recover as yet. Right? So the ones that we recover, so if it's let's say 1,000, right? That's 1,000 weapons, illegal weapon that was already existing that we knew of. Now the other shootings might be 300, 400. So when you add all together, the estimate could be 1,300 illegal weapons that was existing that we knew of.
Now to cut to the chase, earlier on we spoke about the testimony that the commissioner gave, in which case there were a couple of years where it was excessively high, in my opinion, where you're talking about tens of thousands of firearms and millions, tens of millions in one case of ammunition being imported by gun dealers to sell. So I just have to ask, generally speaking, is there any risk when that amount, because I believe they got approval, this is 2020, 21 especially, is there any risk for any of that ending up in the hands of criminals, coming in through the front door and being, you know, it's not necessarily smuggled in, but it goes into the black market channels once it gets in?
So from the firearm dealer's perspective, and the police service does in fact have a check and balance that they do order the firearm dealers. Once you have a firearm and you have ammunition, you run the risk of losing those firearms. And there are a number of persons who had legal weapons who lost their weapons. If they lost their weapons, they also lost ammunition with it that was stolen. Those would have been those could have been gone in the hands of criminals from a criminal act.
Yeah.
The possibility I'm saying, there will always be the possibilities of persons trying to sell their legal firearms, legal ammunition,
I think,
right? But if you look at it, for me personally, I would say that there is a small possibility. Anything like that happening, there's always a possibility of those things happening. Just like where we have found firearm ammunition belonging to the defense force and the police, and allegations were made. I can say that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service does in fact have a check and balance.
So you're not necessarily alarmed like I am, just at the the outlier of 2020 and 2021, because it was any tens of millions.
No, I'm not as alarmed with that aspect of it.
You have to understand, acting ASP is supposed to try and calm down the citizens and tell them it's okay, it's going to be okay. You know, the TTPS is on the ground. He would not express alarm. But I
will be as truthful as possible.
But also, I just wanted to raise the point that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if an individual, a legal firearm user who has a FUL, if their gun is stolen from their place, they could be charged. Right?
Yes, an investigation is in fact launched in this circumstance. So if it is lost, once you lose a weapon,
even if it is stolen,
I lose it.
So if you lose your firearm, an investigation is conducted to determine the circumstance. If it was lost via a criminal act, it still has an investigation, because the investigation will determine whether or not you had the firearm
and whether or not you had it
secured enough in accordance with the firearm act.
No, but if I literally just had a firearm, I don't own one, but say I have one and in the course of the day I lose it.
Then you should not have had a gun in the first place.
Well, exactly. That also could be an offense.
Of course, because it's an offense to be. It should be an offense to be stupid. It should be an offense to be irresponsible.
Well, with a firearm, yes.
So it falls under the investigation where you can go down the line of negligence, and once it has been proven, then we have other aspects to treat.
Anyway, let's actually get now into the question of the day and give you the opportunity to share your thoughts with us and even ask the acting ASP the question. Let's get into your question of the day. So we're asking you this morning, actually, we spoke about this earlier, and we'd like your thoughts and opinions of it. Of course, if you'd like to ask any other question to us or to your acting ASP, feel free to do so. But we're asking you is simple. Do you believe judge-alone trials would be impartial and just? Do you believe judge-alone trials will be impartial and just? Now, just bear in mind, it's an open-ended question because there's so many factors to explore. But on the basis of it, we want your instant thoughts and opinions. You can join us in the conversation. We only have one phone line working with us, actually. That's 623-9376. 623-9376. Call in and join us on the program this morning. As always, kindly mute your television, please, before calling in. Be respectful, of course. Be very careful what you say. And not too long of a response. 6239376. Join us now. Do you believe judge-alone trials would be impartial and just? As we await for our callers to join the conversation this morning, you have to forgive me for having to cut you. You were going to make another point just now before I said, let's get into the question of the day.
Oh, I'm not entirely sure if I can remember what the point was.
But that's a very interesting question.
It is, because I could see where your opinion could go either way. You alluded to how earlier. We have a call on the line from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
morning, sir.
To answer your question, firstly, I don't have confidence in judge-alone trials right now in the state the judiciary is. So I'll leave it at that. ASP Ali, that newsplay article that they had talking about the commissioner's report, I saw an attempt by the commissioner of police to try and link the importation of legal firearms and ammunition to the increase in criminal activity, or serious crime criminal activity in Trinidad and Tobago. And I was flabbergasted for the fact that there was a mention of FUL holders and the traceability of those firearms, because when you get a firearm, you're supposed to go to forensics and fire a firearm, and so they can trace your firearm. And to think that so many of those legal firearms cannot be traced. My thing is, and I'm asking you this question, isn't it that every year a firearm user of somebody with a FUF has to renew their license?
Yes, it's true.
Right. So if they have to renew their license every year, why not make it an additional step before your firearm is your renewal is done? You have to go to forensics and make sure your firearm can be traced. And these are some of the simple solutions that the police service has to implement. And one other thing, quickly, I got stopped in 2 roadblocks over the last 2 weeks in the southern area. It was a pleasure, I must say, to get stopped in a roadblock.
That's good.
Thank you.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because my immediate response, I didn't want to cut you, but my immediate response would have been, well done for you, that's actually good. It's good to see the TTPS is out and conducting these road exercises. He's not being stopped because he's actually, holding any illegal items on him. If he were, he would have been arrested and charged, and we would not be hearing from him this morning. But the point that he's trying to raise is, it's good to see that the TTPS is out and conducting these road exercises, and we want more of it.
We'll answer to that renewal of license and tracing guns after the fact, but we have a call on the line from
Pity Valley.
Good morning, caller.
Morning, Sean and Keaton.
Good morning.
Morning.
In the case with the judge and jury, I think the judge have its role in doing certain cases. And Sean, I'll tell you this, clause 4, I think when you mention is the judge will say how he will want the case if it's jury or by judge.
Okay.
I think that was clear up in the parliament with the government minister in the Ministry of Legal Affairs. It is up to, I think it had a mistake in the clause. I think it is really up to the defendant.
Okay.
How they want to choose if it's judge or jury. Why I would say sometimes a judge case is good. Sometimes murder cases is very technical. And the jury, when they go to deliberate, they still either be going out, standing to ask the judge question what they do if it's burden of proof, if it's a lot of stuff. What is this thing? My thoughts thing and murder.
Reasonable doubt.
Yeah. So sometimes the jury deliberate for a whole 5 days. Sometimes they go in and ask the judge question. Now a judge now will be able by law to know how to give his judgment, because these
defense lawyers could really tie up a layman jury by law. And one more thing before I go. Sometime when a case is ready to start, the minister said they have to go out and send out for 72 people to look for in the country. When that 72 people come now, that boil it, people saying that excuse, they're sick, that this, that that, they're dodging from doing the jury service. Then that 72 people might boil down to 5, they might just get 5. So it's a lot of time-consuming stuff too. Money.
Hello?
Oh boy.
All right, we're sorry that we lost you, caller, but thank you very much for your contribution. Now, just bear in mind, people don't necessarily like to go to work. So what makes you think they're going to go to jury duty? And the other side... not you acting ASB. It's good to see you, by the way, again after 2 years. But furthermore, I think, given the risk associated with people even, scared to make reports of criminal activity, what it might be like sitting down and actually having to listen to a case. Now, is there a possibility that your identity would be...
We also assume that judges will be protected in this day and age. I'm not necessarily willing to say, well, a judge will be safer than an ordinary citizen acting as a juror. I just don't know.
Well, we have a caller on the line with us from Tunapuna. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning. Because what happened, I'm getting TSTT giving me so much everybody trouble with this phone. Yeah.
Girl,
what I'm calling to tell you, I wouldn't be discussing on the what you're discussing right now, but an emergency problem we have. I would like to find out if you could get somebody to investigate this stuff concerning a dangerous situation where somewhere in Arima, the sewer line is expelling raw sewage so much, and it's going into the Caroni River, where we get in our water, a big area that we collecting this water. And I noticed a lot last week too. We had mud water in the line. I noticed a lot of people getting sick and children getting very sick. And I think they have to do something about this situation. It's serious. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for raising that point. We'll do our best to actually move this on to the relevant authorities.
Yeah. There should be some, so mud water, there's some facility to account for that, right? Because when it rains and you get mud water, that's just something that's going to happen.
When did it rain?
Well, I want to say just in general.
Okay.
So that it rained, at some point in time in April, right? But sewage, I don't know if there's facility to handle that. And it might not be coming from the drinking water. It could just be from the exposure of the initial leak of sewage.
We have a caller on the line with us from Dawidi. Good morning, caller.
Right, pleasant morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good program, morning, ASP.
Good morning,
with respect to the question of the day, I don't think that it is debatable. There have been many debates and research done along the way to show that a judge alone trial is by far faster. And you know that we need swift trials to the backlog of trials that we have in Trinidad and Tobago today. ASP, from time to time, I've asked you please to take messages to your Commissioner of Police. This one, I think that, sometimes that you look at the demeanor of an individual and there's a perception that we reach. The commissioner is too jokey, always laughing. And if you look back at the Joint Select Committee, it's the same way in which she was behaving. The Commissioner of Police job and the roles and functions is one that is taken very seriously. I'm not saying that she shouldn't smile every now and then, but the media approached her yesterday, a very serious question like that, and she has to be laughing and joking about it. I mean, again, I want to say perception is a lot. Gentlemen, you'll have a nice day and a wonderful program. It's nice to see that we have a lot of police on the streets. I applaud you and your men, ASP. But the 79ers were able to participate in the police sports quite easily. And you're saying that it's very difficult for us to assist in law enforcement. So we had a tent and we had a fundraiser for our group, and we did participate in sports. These things can't be that difficult. A simple policy would work. Thank you, and you all have a nice day.
Thank you very much, caller. Do have a wonderful day. Well, we just have enough time for just about one more phone call this morning, and to the caller from Tunapuna.
Well, that one is quick. Go ahead.
Yeah, TSTT's giving us a headache as well.
Yeah, boy. Yeah. But so hopefully, call in quick. Don't look to cut us off as we look into the show.
How quick should they call in?
Within the next minute. So one thing though, one of the callers brought up, I believe from San Fernando, Petit Valley, I think it was San Fernando, renewing licenses and why they don't. Okay, we have a caller from Diego Martin first. So it was within the minute. Last caller for the morning. Good morning, Diego Martin.
Hi, morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Yes, we have a little question, sir. To what extent do you think your organization, and how do they view the change in the crime situation over the last 2 years, given the amount of South American migrants that we have had in the country? How do you look at it? How do your organization look at it?
Thank you, caller, for your question.
Thank you, caller.
Right, so like with everything else, it's a new dynamics we have to look at. Because we have had South American nationals involved in criminal activities, arrested and charged, involved in criminal activities. So you will always have that element engaging with our local criminals. And once you have that engaging in those criminals, engaging with local criminals, they bring to the table an experience from South American type criminal activity that will change the dynamics of our crime in Trinidad and Tobago. In any organization, you have to look at it from an organizational perspective. When you have different experiences coming into your organization, it changes your organization, either for good or bad. It all depends on how you want it to change. So it brings in a different experience, different mentality, different criminal behavior. South American criminal behavior is of a very violent nature.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing that into our culture, our criminal culture, changes the environment, right? Good or bad. So so that is something that the police service is also looking into and have been observing in certain type of activities.
Well, it makes sense because we're lamenting crime is getting more violent, more use of automatic weapons, and illegal immigration is easier than ever.
Yes.
And so is it that it's not about the amount of criminals that come in, but rather just the influence of one or two? That's all you need.
Because those individuals who migrate, right, come through the illegal borders, we do not know what criminal activities they were involved in or have been involved in and flee that country into our country.
Well, the mere fact they're allowed to enter our borders illegally
So it is something that we have to consider at the same time.
Just bear in mind, there may be South American citizens who have entered legally and are involved in crime as well.
Yes.
Of course, yeah.
But acting SB, you mentioned that the question was interesting. I don't know if you have an opinion or thought that you'd like to share.
It's interesting because from the perspective of getting witnesses and getting persons to come forward to actually go before the court and present evidence has always been a challenge with respect to witnesses. So there are pros and cons to this new situation. I think that the judiciary would have to look at the pros and cons in the best interest of all parties, together with the accused as well as the victims, and see how it's going to benefit. I cannot see it just simply stating that we just go one way and expect it to work. It has pros and cons and has values on both sides.
Yes.
It all depends.
Which was similar to what I was suggesting this morning.
Yes.
But also, tell your colleagues to make sure and go to court when it is their time to show up, as part of any case,
And we do, in fact, enforce that. It is an offense for an officer, not a disciplinary offense for an officer failing to attend court.
Should also be a disciplinary offense for sending the wrong documents.
Maybe it should be an offense, not
It
just a disciplinary
is.
offense.
So they have been taking a very harder approach to an officer failing to attend court. And if he attends court, fails to attend court, and the matter should be dismissed on his failure, he or she will be subjected to a serious disciplinary offense.
I just want to answer particularly quick with regards to when you renew firearms. I don't think we have the capacity to do ballistics testing when firearms are being renewed, but serial numbers on firearms exist for a reason. Only when we have a crime to actively investigate should we use up time and resources for ballistic testing. But checking serial numbers, you could trace legal firearms that way. That should be good enough for that sort of check.
I just want to quickly end by actually extending congratulations to Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. He received an honorary Doctor of Letters degree from the University of Howard University, actually, in Washington, D.C. on Saturday. Even President Joe Biden joking, saying that how, I didn't know you were so talented, I thought you were just foreign policies, but we got to talk. Congratulations to Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley on your honorary doctorate. And, well, that's where we actually end Talking Points. Acting SB Ashraf Ali, good seeing you once more, sir. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the information you shared with us.
You're welcome, sir. And it simply shows that Trinidad and Tobago has talent.
Well, honorary talent.
We have talent.
I agree with you.
We have.
It is true. It is true. Let me not be sarcastic and talk cynicism.
And over the years, we have seen it in different spheres being acknowledged. So
no,
I would say yes.
I certainly agree with you. We have a lot of talent. I hope we can utilize this talent and create opportunities for these talents to evolve and contribute to TNT. I agree with you 100%.
The irony is TNT doesn't need a volcanologist as much
as
other countries in the Caribbean.
I'm still proud of the fact that we have somebody, a son of the soil, who's a volcanologist.
It's just that the Prime Minister's actual field, he hasn't been able to utilize it in his own home country as much as other countries. Just an observation.
Well done to the Prime Minister. Congratulations on your honorary degree. I'm Keaton Shaw. This has been Talking Point. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day and a great week ahead. And we'll see you again tomorrow morning from 8 o'clock. Goodbye.